In the waning days of the Third Age, when the power of Gondor yet held the line against Mordor's growing shadow, there stood a bridge of ancient craft, spanning the Anduin near the borders of Ithilien. Men called it the Silent Bridge, for no bird sang in the willow that crowned its shore, and the waters beneath flowed without sound, as though the very river held its breath. It was Boromir, son of Denethor, who first marked the strangeness of the lantern. Returning from a patrol near the Morgul Vale with a company of rangers, he had led his men by the familiar path alongside the Anduin. The moon was dark that night, and mist clung to the water like a shroud. Yet as they approached the silent bridge, Boromir beheld a sight that gave him pause. 7 lanterns burning upon the bridge's span, each wrought of silver and glass, their light neither warm nor cold, but pale as starlight filtered through deep water. "Captain," spoke Faramir, who rode at his brother's side, "I know not these lights. In all my ranging through Ithilien, never have I seen lanterns upon that bridge. The silent bridge has stood empty since the days of our grandfather's grandfather." Boromir raised his hand, and the company halted. The rangers dismounted, hands upon their sword hilts, eyes watchful. The lanterns cast no shadows upon the bridge's stones, and their light seemed to drink the mist rather than pierce it. "Damrod," Boromir called softly to his foremost scout, "what make you of this?" The ranger crept forward, low and silent as a hunting cat. Long moments passed ere he returned. "My lord, there is no flame within the lanterns, yet they glow with inner light. The bridge itself is empty. No guard, no watcher. But the stones." He paused, and Boromir saw unease in the weathered face. "The stones are warm, my lord, though no sun has touched them these 3 days past." Faramir spoke again, his voice troubled. "There are old tales of the Silent Bridge. My teacher Mithrandir spoke once of its building, in the elder days, when the kings of Númenor still held commerce with the elves. He said it was made for a purpose now forgotten, and that it should not be crossed lightly." "Gandalf spoke truly," came a voice from the darkness, and all hands flew to weapon. From the mist upon the far bank stepped a figure robed in gray, staff in hand, and Boromir's heart eased as he recognized the wizard. "Mithrandir, you walk softly for one who carries a staff, and you walk late, Boromir, son of Denethor, to be so near to Mordor's borders without need." Gandalf's eyes were grave as he regarded the lantern. "But perhaps there is need after all. Tell me, how long have these lights burned?" "We know not. We have but now discovered them." The wizard nodded slowly and approached the bridge. He laid his hand upon the first lantern, and a shudder ran through him. When he turned back to the rangers, his face was lined with care. "These are elven wrought, made in Eregion in the days before Sauron laid that realm to waste. 7 lanterns for 7 watchers. They were set here by Celebrimbor himself, though for what purpose the histories do not clearly say. That they burn now, after millennia of darkness, speaks of great peril or great need." "What manner of peril?" asked Faramir. "That I cannot yet discern. But mark this, the Silent Bridge was built at a crossing of ways, not only roads of stone and earth, but paths that wind between the seen and unseen world. The lanterns are a warning, or perhaps a summon. We must discover which, and swiftly, for I mislike that they burn now, when the shadow of Mordor grows long across the land." Thus began the matter of the lantern, and though Boromir and Faramir could not then have known it, their fate and the fate of Gondor would be bound to that ancient bridge ere the tale was told. 3 days hence, Gandalf departed from Minas Tirith upon Shadowfax, bidding Boromir and Faramir to set watch upon the Silent Bridge, but not to cross it until his return. The sons of Denethor did as the wizard bade, though the steward himself scoffed at the caution. "Lanterns," Denethor had said, his voice sharp with contempt. "While Mordor arms for war, the Grey Pilgrim would have my sons guard lanterns." The folly of wizards grows apace with the years, yet Boromir and Faramir heeded Gandalf's word, for they had learned to trust in his counsel, and they set a watch of 6 rangers upon the bridge, both day and night. The lanterns burned ceaselessly, neither growing brighter nor dimming, and the silence about the bridge deepened until even the wind seemed loath to disturb the air. On the seventh day, riders came from the north, elves of Rivendell, led by Glorfindel the Golden-Haired, and with them came Elladan and Elrohir, the sons of Elrond. They bore messages for the steward, but they came first to the Silent Bridge, and there they met with Gandalf, who had returned in the night. Boromir came upon them at dawn, as the first light touched the Efelduath. The elves stood upon the bridge, and the lantern's light seemed to recognize them, pulsing gently as though in greeting. Glorfindel's face was stern, and he spoke in the ancient tongue to Gandalf, ere turning to address the sons of Denethor in the common speech. Long has this bridge slept, silent and dark. That it wakes now is a token beyond doubt. The enemy moves against us in ways we have not foreseen. These lanterns were set as markers upon a hidden road, a way between the worlds that Celebrimbor made in secret before his doom. He built it as a refuge, a path by which the free peoples might escape should Sauron triumph. But it was never completed, and the way has been lost for more than 4,000 years. A hidden road? Boromir's hand moved to his sword hilt. To what purpose do we speak of roads when the enemy stands before our gates? Because, Gandalf said quietly, this road may be our only hope. Elrond has had dreams, Boromir, dreams of darkness and fire, of the fall of Minas Tirith and the breaking of the world. In his dreams, he sees a small company crossing the Silent Bridge, following the light of the lanterns into the unseen places. And in his dreams, this company bears with them a burden that will determine the fate of Middle-earth. Faramir stepped forward. What burden? Speak plainly, Mithrandir. The wizard's eyes were shadowed. That I may not yet say, for the matter is not yet decided. But the White Council has been summoned, and I must ride to Rivendell with all speed. Elrond would have you come as well, sons of Gondor, if you will. Your presence is requested at a council that will shape the days to come. Boromir and Faramir exchanged glances. To leave Gondor now, with war imminent, seemed folly. Yet in Gandalf's eyes, they saw an urgency that could not be denied. My father will not be pleased, Boromir said at last. Your father need not know until you are beyond his reach to recall, Glorfindel replied. Forgive me, but time presses, and the steward's wisdom in this matter is clouded. Thus, it was decided. Leaving word with Damrod to maintain the watch, Boromir and Faramir rode north with Gandalf and the elves, making for Rivendell by hidden way. Behind them, the seven lanterns burned on through the gathering dark. The journey to Rivendell took a fortnight, for they rode swiftly, and by night when they could. Boromir chafed at the delay, thinking always of Gondor and the watch upon its walls. Yet Faramir was more thoughtful, and as they rode he questioned Glorfindel about the Silent Bridge and the hidden road. In the elder days, the Elf Lord said, Celebrimbor perceived that Sauron would never be truly defeated while the world endured. He foresaw ages of struggle, and he sought to create a way by which those who could not bear the weight of war might pass out of the circles of the world to a place of refuge. The Silent Bridge was to be the door to that way, but ere he could complete his work, Sauron attacked Eregion. Celebrimbor died in torment, and the secret of the road died with. Then how can we use this road if the way is lost? Boromir demanded. The lanterns, remember, Elladan said softly. They were kindled with a portion of Celebrimbor's art and knowledge. If they burn, the way may yet be found, but only by one who bears a key. What key? That, said Elrohir, is what we must discover. When they came at last to Rivendell, they found the house of Elrond full of guests, elves from Lothlorien, dwarves from Erebor, and men from distant lands. At the center of all councils sat Elrond half-elven, and beside him Galadriel of Lothlorien and Círdan the shipwright, ancient beyond reckoning. The council was held in the great hall, and there Boromir and Faramir learned at last what burden had been spoken of. The one ring found by the hobbit Bilbo Baggins, and now borne by his heir, Frodo. Long and grave were the debates, and many voices spoke for different courses. But always the talk returned to the Silent Bridge and the lanterns It was Galadriel who spoke the words that changed all. "I have looked into my mirror, and I have seen the bridge with its 7 lights. In my vision, a company of 9 passed beneath those lights, and at their head walked one who bore the ring. But the vision was shrouded, and I could not see whether they passed into safety or into doom." 9, mused Gandalf. 7 lanterns and 9 walkers. There is a pattern here, though I cannot yet read it plain. Círdan rose, his grey eyes distant. In the libraries of the Grey Havens, there are fragments of Celebrimbor's writing, salvaged from the ruin of Eregion. I have studied them long. The hidden road was never meant for armies or for great hosts. It was made for a small company, for stealth rather than strength. And the key, he paused. The key was to be a ring. Silence fell like a blow. "Not the one ring," Círdan said quickly, seeing the dismay on many faces. "One of the 7, the dwarf rings, which Celebrimbor also made. But the 7 are lost or held by Sauron, save perhaps one." "The ring of Durin," said Glóin the dwarf, who had come from Erebor. "It was passed from king to king, but Thrain, father of Thorin, bore it when he was captured by the necromancer, who was Sauron in disguise. I had thought it lost. Perhaps not entirely," Gandalf said slowly. "When I entered Dol Guldur to search for Thrain, I found him dying in the dungeons. He gave to me a map and a key, but there may have been more. I must search my memory." Thus the council debated long into the night, and in the end it was decided that a fellowship should be formed to bear the One Ring to Mordor, there to destroy it in the fires of Mount Doom. But before that dread journey began, some among them would venture to the Silent Bridge to discover if the hidden road might yet be open. For if Sauron could be defeated by the destruction of the ring, still the peoples of Middle-earth would need refuge from the wars that would follow. Boromir was chosen for the fellowship, as was Gandalf, and to the Silent Bridge would go a smaller company, Faramir, Glorfindel, and Elladan, along with one whose name would be remembered long in song, Landroval, a dwarf of Erebor, grandson of Glóin, who claimed to have dreamed of 7 lights upon water. The parting of the brothers was bitter. Boromir would go south with the fellowship, while Faramir would return to Gondor with Glorfindel and the others to investigate the Silent Bridge. Each feared he might not see the other again. "Hold Gondor for me, brother," Boromir said as they embraced. "If I fall on this quest, the defense of our city falls to you." "You will not fall," Faramir answered, though his heart was heavy with foreboding. "You are the stronger of us, Boromir. You will return in triumph." But Gandalf, overhearing this, said gravely, "Strength of arm is not always the measure of a man's worth, nor does it determine who will stand or fall. Each of you will face trials fitted to your nature. Be true to yourselves, and trust in the wisdom of the valor." The fellowship departed at the winter's turning, 9 walkers against the shadow. Faramir watched them go with troubled eyes, then turned north to gather his own company. With him went Glorfindel, Elladan, the dwarf Landroval, and Damrod the ranger, who had kept watch over the bridge and had news to tell. "The lanterns have changed," Damrod said as they rode south from Rivendell. 3 days passed. The 7th lantern, the one nearest the eastern shore, began to pulse like a heartbeat. "And we have heard sounds from beneath the bridge, voices, singing in no language we know." Glorfindel's face grew stern. "The way opens. We must make haste." They rode hard through Eriador and into Rohan, skirting the borders of the Emyn Muil. The winter was harsh that year, and snow lay thick upon the land. When at last they came to the Anduin and the Silent Bridge, they found the rangers' camp abandoned, and the bridge itself transformed. Where once 7 lanterns had burned, now only 6 remained. The 7th was gone, and in its place stood a figure, tall and robed in gray, hooded and still, facing eastward toward Mordor. The figure did not move, did not speak, yet from it emanated a presence that made even Glorfindel pause. "A wraith?" whispered Damrod, his voice tight with fear. "No," Glorfindel said slowly. "This is something older. A warden, perhaps, set here by Celebrimbor himself. It waits. Faramir dismounted and approached the bridge on foot. As he drew near, the hooded figure turned, and though he could not see its face, Faramir felt the weight of its gaze. "Who are you?" he called. "What do you guard?" The figure raised one hand, and the 6 remaining lanterns flared bright. Then a voice came, thin and cold as wind over ice. "I am the Keeper of Silence, set here in the Elder Days to bar the way until the appointed hour. That hour is come. The road opens for those who bear the key. Do you bear the key, son of Gondor?" "Oh, we bear no key," Faramir answered honestly. "We seek only to understand what is happening, and to aid our people if we can. Then you may not pass." The keeper lowered its hand, and the lanterns dimmed. "The road is for the ring-bearer, and those who walk with him. For all others, the bridge is closed." "Wait!" Landroval the dwarf pushed forward, his eyes bright. "I have dreamed of this place. In my dreams, I held a ring of gold, and it opened the way. Could such a ring be fashioned anew?" The keeper was silent for a long moment. Then, "The key cannot be made again. It exists, or it does not. But I will tell you this. The 7th lantern I have taken into my keeping, for one comes who will have need of it. When the 9 walkers reach the crossroads of Ithilien, the lantern will show them the hidden way. Until then, the bridge must remain silent." "Who comes?" Faramir demanded. "The Fellowship? But they journey to Mordor. Not here. Paths diverge and meet again," the keeper said. "That is all I may tell you. Now go, and trouble this place no more until the hour strikes." With that, the figure became as still as stone, and though Faramir called out again, it gave no answer. The company withdrew, and they made camp upon the western shore, keeping watch through the cold nights that followed. Far to the south, at the falls of Rauros, darkness fell upon the Fellowship. Boromir, overcome by the lure of the ring, had sought to take it from Frodo. The hobbit fled, and Boromir, stricken with remorse, was slain defending Merry and Pippin from Uruk-hai. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli pursued the orcs into Rohan, while Frodo and Sam went east toward Mordor alone. Yet there was a 10th member of that broken fellowship, one whose presence had not been marked at the council, a figure in a gray cloak who had followed in secret, watching and waiting. This was Círdan's emissary, an elf named Arendelle, sent to shadow the ring-bearer and guide him to the Silent Bridge should the need arise. Arendelle found Frodo and Sam in the Eman Muil, struggling through the maze of rocks and gullies. He revealed himself at twilight as the hobbits rested in a hollow. "Peace, Frodo Baggins," he said, raising his hands to show he bore no weapon. "I am sent by Círdan the Shipwright with words of counsel. The road to Mordor is long and perilous, but there may be another way, a hidden path that leads not through the Black Gate, but beneath the very roots of the mountains." Frodo was wary, for he had learned to trust no one. But Sam, ever practical, said, "Begging your pardon, sir, but any road that doesn't go through Mordor's front door sounds good to us. Where is this hidden path?" "At the Silent Bridge, where the Anduin flows through Ithilien. There burn lanterns of old, and there a keeper waits. If you can pass the keeper's test, the way will open." "Why should we trust you?" Frodo asked. Arendelle smiled sadly. "You should not, perhaps. But consider, Círdan is the oldest of all elves remaining in Middle-earth, save perhaps Galadriel. He has watched empires rise and fall. If he sends me to you with this message, it is because he sees something in the pattern of days that others do not. The ring must be destroyed, yes. But perhaps there is more than one way to achieve that end." Frodo thought of Galadriel's words in Lothlorien, of the hidden paths and the choices yet to come. At last, he nodded. "We will go to this bridge, but Sam and I go together. And if you play us false, we will—" "I know," Arendelle said gently. "You will do what you must. Come then. We have far to travel, and the enemy is alert." Thus, Frodo, Sam, and Arendelle turned their steps toward the Silent Bridge, traveling by night through the western marches of Ithilien. They went in secret, avoiding both the rangers of Gondor and the orcs of Mordor, and as they went, Gollum followed, unseen and patient. Faramir's company kept watch upon the bridge for 20 days. The keeper stood motionless, neither eating nor sleeping, a statue in gray. The 6 lanterns burned on, and beneath the bridge, the waters of the Anduin flowed in eerie silence. On the 20th night, a change came. The keeper stirred, lifting its hooded head as though scenting the wind. The lanterns blazed suddenly bright, and a 7th light appeared, not upon the bridge, but floating above the waters downstream, drifting slowly toward them. "To arms!" Glorfindel called, but even as the elves and men readied their weapons, they saw that the light was not hostile. It was the 7th lantern, the one the keeper had taken, and it floated upon the river like a leaf, its light casting ripples of silver across the water. Behind the lantern came a boat, a small craft, elvish made, and in it sat 3 figures. As the boat drew near, Faramir gave a cry of astonishment. "Hobbits! And an elf!" He waded into the shallows to meet them. "What do you hear? This is no place for—" He stopped, for he saw the burden that one of the hobbits bore, hidden beneath his cloak, but emanating a presence that made Faramir's skin prickle. "You are the ring-bearer." Frodo looked up at him with eyes that seemed too old for his young face. "I am. And you are Faramir, brother of Boromir. I saw you in the Lady's Mirror, though I knew not then who you were. How came you here?" "The Fellowship is broken," Arundel said, stepping from the boat. "Boromir is slain, and the company scattered, but the quest endures. We have come seeking the hidden road." The keeper descended from the bridge, and now Faramir saw that it moved with a strange gliding motion, its feet not quite touching the ground. It approached Frodo and stood before him, towering over the small hobbit. "You bear the key," the keeper said, and its voice held a note of wonder. "Not the key I was told to expect, but a greater one. The One Ring is the master of all rings, and it can open any door that rings have made. Will you use it to pass the bridge, Ring-bearer?" "No." Frodo stepped back, clutching his chest. "I will not use the ring. It is evil, and I will not." "Peace," the keeper said, and there was something almost gentle in its tone. "I do not ask you to use its power for dominion or destruction. I ask only that you bear it across the threshold. The mere presence of the ring will be enough. The way will recognize its master and open." Frodo hesitated, torn between hope and fear. Sam put a hand on his shoulder. "Mr. Frodo, if this gets us to Mordor without going through armies of orcs, maybe it's worth the risk?" Glorfindel spoke then, his voice carrying the authority of ages. "Keeper of silence, I know you for what you are, a construct of Celebrimbor, given form and will to guard this place, but the ring you speak of is treacherous beyond measure. What guarantee can you give that opening this way will not bring greater doom upon us all?" "None," the keeper replied. "I am but a guardian, not a prophet, but I will tell you what I know. The hidden road leads beneath the mountains to a place where the fires of the earth still burn, ancient fires kindled before Sauron rose, fires that might unmake even the One Ring. Celebrimbor built this way as an alternative to Mount Doom, for he foresaw a time when Mordor's gates might be closed against all comers. If you would destroy the ring without facing Sauron's armies, this is your chance." Silence fell. Then Landroval the dwarf spoke. "I dreamed of this. I dreamed of a choice at a bridge, and 2 roads. One through fire and darkness to almost certain death, and one through strange places to uncertain hope. In my dream, the ring-bearer chose hope." Frodo looked at each face around him. Faramir, torn between duty and desire to help. Glorfindel, ancient and wise. Arundel, sent by Círdan. Sam, loyal unto death. And the keeper, patient and strange. At last, he took a deep breath. "I will cross the bridge," he said, "but I will not go alone. If this is a trap, let it take us all together. Then we go with you." Faramir said firmly, "This is Gondor's burden as much as yours." Thus, it was decided. The company prepared to cross the silent bridge, to follow the 7 lights into the unknown places of the world, seeking a hidden road to a secret fire. But as they made ready, none of them saw Gollum crouched in the reeds downstream, watching with burning eyes. At midnight, under a waning moon, the company assembled upon the western end of the silent bridge. Frodo stood at their head, one hand pressed against his chest, where the ring hung upon its chain. Behind him came Sam, then Faramir, and Glorfindel, followed by Eladan, Damrod, Landroval, and Arendelle. The keeper stood aside, the seventh lantern in its hands. When you pass the first light, the keeper instructed, do not look back. When you pass the second, do not speak. When you pass the third, do not think of those you have left behind. Each lantern is a threshold, and each demands its price in sacrifice. What if we fail these tests? Faramir asked. Then the way will reject you, and you will find yourself standing once more upon the western shore, unable to cross. The bridge will close, and the lanterns will go dark forever. Frodo nodded grimly. Then, let us begin. He stepped onto the bridge, and the stones beneath his feet thrummed like the string of a harp. The first lantern burned before him, and as he passed beneath it, he felt a tugging at his heart, a desire to turn, to look back at the Shire, at Bag End, at everything he had left behind. But he pressed forward, eyes fixed ahead. The feeling passed. One by one, the company followed, and each felt that same pull. Damrod the Ranger faltered, his step slowing. But Glorfindel laid a hand upon his shoulder and urged him on. When they had all passed the first light, they heard a sound like a door closing far away. The second lantern loomed. Here the test was harder, for each of them had much they wished to say. Warnings, prayers, words of love or farewell. But they walked in silence, lips pressed tight, and the weight of unspoken words lay heavy upon them. Sam's eyes were wet with tears, but he made no sound. The third lantern blazed with cold fire. Frodo felt memories rising. Bilbo's face, Gandalf's laugh, the green hills of the Shire in spring. He felt himself drowning in remembrance, and for a moment he stood frozen, lost in the past. Then Sam's hand found his, squeezing tight, and the touch anchored him. He pushed the memories down and walked on. Through the fourth and fifth and sixth lights they passed, and each threshold took something from them: courage, hope, certainty. By the time they reached the seventh lantern, they moved like ghosts, hollow and drained. The keeper stood there, holding the final light aloft. "This is the last door," the keeper said. "Beyond this, you leave the world you know. You will walk in places between places, where time runs strangely and space folds upon itself. If you would turn back, turn now. But if you go on, you cannot return by this path. The bridge will close behind you." "We go on," Frodo said, though his voice was barely a whisper. The keeper nodded and placed the seventh lantern upon the bridge's eastern end. As it touched the stone, the air rippled like water, and a doorway opened. Not a door of wood or stone, but a rent in the fabric of the world itself, showing a passage beyond, a tunnel of smooth rock that glowed faintly with its own light. Frodo stepped through, and the others followed. Behind them, the doorway sealed with a sound like thunder, and the silent bridge stood empty once more, its 7 lanterns dark at last. They found themselves in a vast tunnel, smooth-walled and gently sloping downward. The air was warm and dry, and the rock hummed with a deep vibration, as though they walked within the body of some sleeping giant. Glorfindel kindled a light, but it was scarcely needed, for the walls themselves gave off a pale phosphorescence. "This is dwarf work," Landroval said, running his hands over the stone, "but older than any dwarf work I have seen. This was carved before the awakening of my people, in the days when the world was young." "Not dwarf work," Glorfindel corrected. "This was made by the Valar themselves, or by their servants. These are the roots of the mountain, the bones of the earth. Celebrimbor found this place and shaped it to his purpose, but he did not make it." They walked for hours, or perhaps days, for time seemed to lose its meaning in those deep places. They ate when they were hungry, and slept when they were weary. But there was no way to measure the passage of time. The tunnel wound ever downward, and the air grew warmer. At length they came to a great cavern, and there they stopped in awe. The cavern was vast beyond measure, its ceiling lost in darkness high above, and at its center was a lake of fire, molten rock that roiled and bubbled, casting a fierce red light across the stone. Bridges of rock spanned the lake, thin and delicate as spider silk, and upon the far side of the lake stood a door of iron, graven with rune, the secret fire. Arundel breathed, Celebrimbor's forge. But as they gazed upon that terrible sight, a voice echoed through the cavern, a voice they knew too well, filled with malice and longing. Tricksy hobbitses, wicked, tricksy, false. They tries to cheat poor Smeagol, yes they does. But we followed, and now we takes it. We takes the precious. Gollum burst from the shadows, leaping at Frodo with fingers like claws. Chaos erupted. Sam threw himself at Gollum, grappling with the wretched creature as they rolled dangerously close to the edge of the nearest bridge. Faramir and Glorfindel drew their sword, but in the close confines and fierce heat, they dared not strike for fear of hitting Sam. Frodo staggered backward, clutching the ring. The presence of so much fire seemed to agitate it. He could feel it burning against his chest, whispering promises of power. For a moment, the temptation was overwhelming. He could use the ring, command Gollum to throw himself into the flames, command them all to obey him. "No!" he gasped, and turned away, squeezing his eyes shut against the vision of dominion. Faramir saw the struggle on Frodo's face and understood. This was the same trial his brother had faced, the same choice that had led to Boromir's fall. And in that moment, Faramir made his own choice. He sheathed his sword and spoke, his voice cutting through the tumult. "Hold, all of you, hold!" Something in his tone made them pause. Even Gollum, pinned beneath Sam's weight, stopped struggling and looked up with wary eye. Faramir approached Frodo slowly, hands open and empty. "Frodo Baggin," he said quietly, "I know what you feel. The ring calls to you, promising an end to pain, an end to fear. It promises power to command and control, but that way lies only madness and ruin." "I know," Frodo whispered. "I know, but it's so hard." "Then let me help you bear it." Faramir knelt before the hobbit, and his eyes were filled with sorrow and resolve. "My brother fell to the ring's lure. I will not. But I have lived in the shadow of that failure all my life, wondering if I would prove stronger or weaker than Boromir. Let me prove it now. Let me help you destroy the ring, not as one who seeks to take it, but as one who helps you cast it away." Frodo looked into Faramir's eyes and saw truth there, and more than truth, he saw compassion. Slowly, the burning need to use the ring faded, replaced by a deep weariness. "I don't know if I can do this," Frodo said. "I'm not strong enough, not alone." "Then do not stand alone," Glorfindel said, stepping forward. "We are all here, Frodo. We all bear this burden with you." Sam, still holding Gollum, spoke up. "Mr. Frodo, what about him? He'll just follow us and cause more trouble if we let him go." Frodo looked down at Gollum, at that pitiful, twisted creature who had once been a hobbit like himself. He thought of Gandalf's words, "He has some part yet to play, for good or ill." And he thought of mercy, that quality which Bilbo had shown and which had preserved both their lives. "Let him up, Sam," Frodo said. "But Mr. Frodo, let him up." Reluctantly, Sam released Gollum, who scuttled backward like a spider, hissing and spitting. But he did not flee. Instead, he crouched there, watching them with those great, luminous eyes. "Smeagol," Frodo said gently, using the creature's true name, "we're going to destroy the ring. We're going to cast it into that fire. You can help us, or you can try to stop us. But if you help us, you'll be free of it at last, free of the precious forever." Gollum's face twisted with confusion and torment. "Free? No. No. Can't be free. Needs it. We needs it." "You need to be free of it," Frodo said. "I can see what it's done to you, Smeagol. Don't you want to be free?" For a long moment, Gollum was silent. Then, in a voice that was almost his old voice, almost Smeagol's voice, he whispered, "Tired, so tired. Hurts us. It hurts us. The burning. Then help us end it," Faramir said. "Show us the way across these bridges. You've spent your life in dark places. You can see ways we cannot. Guide us to that door and help us finish this." Gollum rocked back and forth, muttering to himself. The company waited, tense and watchful. At last, the creature looked up. "Yes, he hissed. Yes, we shows them. We shows them the way. But then we takes it? Just one more time? No, Frodo said firmly. Into the fire, Smeagol. That's where it must go. Gollum wailed, a sound of pure anguish, but he did not attack again. Instead, he began to creep toward the nearest bridge, beckoning them to follow. The bridges across the Lake of Fire were a test of nerve. They were ancient, beyond reckoning, carved from the living stone, but worn thin by ages and the heat rising from below. Gollum crossed first, moving with an agility born of desperation and long habit of dwelling in dark places. The others followed more slowly, Glorfindel at the rear to catch any who might stumble. The heat was intense, and sweat poured from them as they went. Frodo felt the ring growing heavier with each step, as though it sensed its doom approaching and fought against being carried toward destruction. Twice he stumbled, and each time Sam was there to steady him. They crossed 3 bridges in all, each thinner and more treacherous than the last. Landroval the dwarf muttered prayers to Auli the smith as he went, and Damrod kept his eyes fixed firmly ahead, refusing to look down into the churning flames below. At last, they reached the far shore and stood before the iron door. Up close, they could see that the runes were written in the ancient Elvish script, and they glowed with a faint silver light. Glorfindel read them aloud. Here lies the last forge, made by Celebrimbor in his pride and his despair. Here may be unmade that which was made in darkness. Let none pass who bear evil in their hearts, for this fire knows truth and suffers no lies. The door is sealed, Elladan said, running his hands over the smooth metal. There is no lock, no handle. How do we open it? Arundel stepped forward. Círdan told me of this. The door opens only to one who comes in true repentance, seeking to undo what was done in error. Celebrimbor made it thus, for he knew that pride and ambition had led him to aid Sauron in the forging of the rings. This forge was his penance, his attempt to create a way to unmake his mistakes. All eyes turned to Frodo. The hobbit stood before the door, so weary he could barely stand, the weight of the ring dragging him down. But he lifted his head and placed one hand upon the iron. I come to destroy the ring, he said, his voice cracking. Not because I am strong, but because I must. I come in repentance for all the times I wanted to use it, all the times I desired its power. I come seeking to undo what Sauron made, to break what should never have been forged. Let me pass. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the runes blazed with sudden brilliance, and the door swung inward, revealing a chamber beyond. The forge of Celebrimbor was smaller than the great cavern they had crossed, but no less impressive. It was circular, with walls of polished stone carved with images of the smithing arts. At the center stood an anvil of black iron, and beside it a crucible that glowed white-hot, filled with molten metal that never cooled. The heat was overwhelming, like standing in the heart of the sun itself. This is it, Glorfindel said softly. The fire that can unmake the ring. Cast it in, Frodo, and the deed is done. But Frodo did not move. He stood frozen at the threshold, staring at the crucible. His hand clutched the ring through his shirt, and his face was twisted with anguish. I can't, he gasped. I can't do it. It's mine, my precious. I won't give it up. Sam's heart sank. No, Mr. Frodo, don't say that. You've come so far. But Frodo backed away, his eyes wild. No, I'll keep it. I'll use it. It's mine. He turned to flee, but Faramir caught him by the arm. Frodo, listen to me. Let me go. Frodo struggled, and in his desperation, his hand went to the chain about his neck. His fingers closed on the ring, and he began to pull it free. And then Gollum struck. With a shriek of rage and longing, the creature launched himself at Frodo, biting and clawing. The two tumbled to the ground, struggling for the ring. Sam tried to pull them apart, but Gollum was possessed by a strength beyond reason. The precious! Gollum's precious! The creature wailed, and his teeth sank into Frodo's finger, severing it at the knuckle. Frodo screamed. The ring fell free, still on the severed finger, and Gollum snatched it up with a cry of triumph. He capered and danced, holding the ring aloft. "We has it! We has the precious at last! It's ours! Ours! Forever and—" He stepped backward, still dancing, and his foot came down on empty air. For one frozen instant, Gollum teetered on the edge of the crucible, his eyes wide with sudden understanding. Then he fell. The creature and the ring plunged into the molten fire together. There was a flash of light so bright it blinded them all, and a sound like the earth itself crying out in agony. The walls of the forge shook, and cracks appeared in the stone. "Out!" Glorfindel shouted. "The whole place is coming down." They ran, half carrying Frodo, who clutched his bleeding hand and wept. Behind them, the forge chamber collapsed in on itself, the ancient magic that had sustained it finally breaking. They raced across the bridges as the lake of fire surged and heaved, great gouts of flame shooting up to scorch the ceiling of the cavern. The bridges cracked and fell away behind them as they ran, each span dropping into the flames just seconds after they passed. When they reached the far side, they kept running, up the tunnel they had descended, as the entire underground realm began to shake itself apart. How long they ran, none could say. Time lost all meaning in that desperate flight. But at last, they burst out into the open air, emerging not at the silent bridge, but in a different place entirely. A rocky hillside in the mountains above the Emin Arnon, with the first light of dawn breaking over the peaks. They collapsed there, gasping and spent. Behind them, the entrance to the tunnel groaned and sealed itself with a final rumble, leaving only bare rock. The ring was destroyed. The quest was ended. But at what cost? Frodo lay in a fever for 3 days, tended by Faramir and the others. His hand had been bound, but the wound would not heal cleanly, and he tossed and turned, crying out in his sleep. Sam never left his side, speaking to him constantly, reminding him of the Shire and home and all the good things they would see again. On the 4th day, the fever broke. Frodo woke weak but clear-minded, and he looked at his bandaged hand with eyes that held both sorrow and relief. "It's gone," he said softly. "I can't feel it anymore. The weight, the voice, it's gone." "Aye, Mr. Frodo," Sam said, tears streaming down his cheeks. "It's gone. You did it. You destroyed the ring." "We destroyed it," Frodo corrected. "All of us, even Gollum, at the end." News of the ring's destruction spread like wildfire. Though they were far from any settlement, Glorfindel sent word by swift messenger to Rivendell and Lothlorien, and thence to all the free people. The effect was immediate and dramatic. In Mordor, the Dark Tower fell. Sauron, whose very essence had been bound into the ring, was utterly destroyed. His spirit scattered like smoke on the wind. The armies of darkness, bereft of their master's will, broke and fled. Barad-dûr collapsed into ruins, and Mount Doom erupted in a final paroxysm, sealing the Black Land behind walls of fire and ash. The war was over. Middle-earth was saved. But for Frodo and his companions, there was no immediate triumph. They were exhausted, wounded in body and spirit, and far from any city of men. Faramir sent Damrod to fetch help, and within a week, rangers came from Ithilien with horses and supplies. They rode slowly back toward Minas Tirith, and as they went, they saw the land beginning to heal. The shadow that had lain upon it for so long was lifting, and green things grew where only barren stone had been. The people they met on the road wept with joy and called them Savior. Yet there was one shadow that did not lift. When they came at last to the crossroads of Ithilien, they found Aragorn waiting for them, and his face was grave. "Boromir is dead," he said without preamble. He fell defending the little ones, Merry and Pippin. "They were taken by Uruk-hai, but we have pursued and defeated the orcs. The hobbits are safe in Rohan, but Boromir," he turned to Faramir, "I am sorry. He died a hero's death, his honor redeemed, but I know that is cold comfort." Faramir received the news as though struck by a physical blow. He had known, somehow, had felt his brother's death even at the distance, but to hear it confirmed was agony. He turned away, his shoulders shaking, and for a long moment he could not speak. At last he said, his voice hoarse, "I must tell my father. He loved Boromir more than life itself. This will destroy him." They came to Minas Tirith in a strange procession, heroes returning from a quest that few had known about, bearing news of both triumph and tragedy. The city was in turmoil, for word of Sauron's fall had arrived before them, and the people were wild with celebration. But when they learned of Boromir's death, the joy was tempered with sorrow. Denethor received them in the tower hall, and when Faramir told him of Boromir's fall, the steward aged before their eyes. He wept without shame, and then his grief turned to anger. "You should have been there," he said to Faramir, his voice shaking. "You should have protected him. He was worth 10 of you, and now he is gone while you remain. Why? Why were you spared, and not he?" The words cut deep, but Faramir stood firm. "I was elsewhere because I was doing what needed to be done. I helped destroy the ring, Father. I helped save Middle-earth." "I care nothing for Middle-earth," Denethor shouted. "I care for my son, and he is dead. Get out of my sight." Faramir left the tower hall with his head held high, but his heart was broken. Glorfindel found him later on the walls, staring out at the mountains. "Your father grieves," the elf said gently. "In time, he will see what you have done, and he will be proud." "Will he?" Faramir's voice was bitter. "Boromir was always the son he wanted. I was just the spare." "You are the son who saved the world," Glorfindel replied. "That is no small thing." But Faramir could take no comfort in it. He had lost his brother and his father's love, and though the ring was destroyed and the war was won, his own heart was heavy as stone. In the weeks that followed, Frodo recovered slowly from his ordeal. He remained in Minas Tirith as a guest of honor, but he took little joy in the celebration. The loss of his finger was the least of his hurts. The true wounds were deeper, scars on his soul that would never fully heal. It was Arendelle who came to him one evening as the sun set over the White Mountain and spoke words that changed everything. "Frodo Baggins," the elf said, "there is something you must know, something that Círdan charged me to tell you, should the quest succeed." "What is it?" Frodo asked wearily. "The Forge of Celebrimbor was not what you thought, or rather, it was more than you thought." Arendelle sat beside him on the terrace. Celebrimbor did not build that forge solely to unmake the rings. He built it to remake them, to forge them anew, without Sauron's taint. Frodo sat up straight. "What? But the forge is destroyed. The ring is unmade." "Yes," Arendelle said. But before the forge was lost, Celebrimbor completed one final work. He forged a new ring, a ring of healing, not domination, a ring that could undo corruption and restore what was lost. He hid it within the forge itself, in the anvil's heart, waiting for one who would prove worthy by rejecting the One Ring even at the moment of its destruction. "I didn't reject it," Frodo said bitterly. "I claimed it. I would have kept it, if not for Gollum." "But you brought it to the place of its unmaking," Arendelle replied. "You carried it through all trials and temptations. You did what no one else in all of Middle-earth could have done, and for that, Celebrimbor deemed you worthy." From his pouch, Arendelle drew forth a ring, small and silver, set with a white stone that glowed softly in the twilight. This was hidden in the ruins after the forge collapsed. The stone chamber did not fall entirely. Some small portion remained. I went back and searched, and I found this waiting. It is meant for you, Frodo. It is Celebrimbor's gift to the one who ended the tyranny of the rings. Frodo recoiled. "No, no more rings. I won't touch it." "This is not like the others," Arendelle said gently. "This ring holds no dominion, no compulsion. It heals and it preserves. With it, you could undo the hurts you have suffered. You could restore your finger, mend the wounds in your spirit. You could live long and well, free of pain." "At what price?" Frodo demanded. "There is always a price. The price is memory," Arendelle said quietly. "The ring preserves the bearer, but it cannot erase what was endured. You would bear the memory of your suffering always. That is the burden Celebrimbor placed upon it. Healing, yes, but not forgetting. The past remains to teach and to guide." Frodo looked at the ring for a long time. Then he shook his head. "Give it to someone else. Give it to Faramir. He needs healing more than I. Or give it to Aragorn to help him heal the land. I want no part of Ring ever again. It was made for you, Arundel said. It will accept no other bearer. The choice is yours. Take it and live, or refuse it, and bear your hurts as best you can. Frodo closed his eyes. He thought of all he had endured, all he had lost. He thought of the Shire, and whether he could ever truly return there. Scarred as he was, he thought of Sam, faithful Sam, who had carried him when he could not walk, who had never once faltered in his loyalty. I need time, he said at last. I cannot decide this now. Take all the time you need, Arundel said, and he placed the ring in Frodo's hand. But know this, the choice you make will echo through the ages. Celebrimbor's last work, accepted or refused. Either way, it will shape the fourth age that is to come. He left Frodo alone then, with the ring lying in his palm, glowing softly in the gathering dark. 3 months passed. Aragorn was crowned king, and he took the name Elessar. He wed Arwen Undomiel, and a new age began for Gondor. The scattered peoples of Middle-earth came together in friendship, and there was much rebuilding and healing. But Faramir did not find peace. His father Denethor had withdrawn from the world, speaking to no one, locked in his grief. Faramir took up the duties of steward, serving King Elessar with honor. His heart was still heavy. It was on Midsummer's Eve that the summons came. A messenger from the Rangers of Ithilien brought word. The silent bridge had awakened once more. The 7 lanterns burned again, and the keeper stood upon the span, calling for Faramir and Frodo. They rode out together, the hobbit and the man, along with Sam, Aragorn, and Gandalf, who had returned to Minas Tirith for the coronation. When they came to the bridge, they found it transformed. Where once it had been a simple span of stone, now it was magnificent. The lanterns blazed with rainbow light, and the bridge itself seemed to be made of crystal and starlight. The keeper stood at its center, but now its hood was thrown back, revealing a face of noble beauty, neither male nor female, young nor old, but timeless and serene. The ring is destroyed, the keeper said, and the hidden road has served its purpose. But the bridge remains, and it has a new purpose now. It stands as a memorial to what was sacrificed, and as a gateway to what may yet be. A gateway to where? Aragorn asked. To the place where hurts may be healed and burdens set down, the keeper replied. To the undying land, where the elves go when they are weary of the world. The bridge is open now to any who have borne great burdens in the service of good. Ring-bearers and those who walked with them. The invitation is given, and the choice is yours. Frodo's hand tightened on the silver ring that still hung about his neck, unworn. He had not yet decided whether to accept Celebrimbor's gift, but now, faced with this new choice, he felt the weight of decision pressing upon him. If I cross the bridge, he said slowly, can I return? No, the keeper said. The way is one way only. Those who cross pass out of Middle-earth forever. But you would find healing there. Frodo Baggins, you would find peace. Frodo looked at Sam, at Gandalf, at all the friends he had made on his journey. Then he looked at Faramir, and he saw in the man's eyes a longing that matched his own, a desire to escape the pain, to find a place where old wounds finally mend. What about you? Frodo asked Faramir. Will you cross? Faramir was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. My place is here. Gondor needs me, and I will not abandon my duty, no matter how heavy the burden. But you, Frodo, you have earned your rest. And Celebrimbor's ring? Gandalf asked quietly. What will you do with it? Frodo looked down at the silver band. Then, suddenly, he smiled. The first true smile he had smiled since the ring's destruction. I will give it as a gift, he said. He turned to Faramir and held out the ring. For you, Faramir, son of Denethor, for the man who stood beside me when I needed it most, who helped me bear the unbearable burden. Take this, and let it heal your hurts. Let it mend the breach between you and your father. Celebrimbor made it for the ring-bearer, but I pass that title to you now. I will cross the bridge and find my peace in the undying lands. You will stay and heal Middle-earth. Faramir's eyes widened. Frodo! I cannot. You can! Frodo said firmly. And you will. This is my choice, freely made. The ring is yours. He placed it in Faramir's hand, and as the silver band touched the man's skin, it blazed with white light. The wounds in Faramir's heart, the grief for his brother, the pain of his father's rejection began to eat. The ring would not erase those hurts, but it would help him bear them, help him grow strong in spite of them. "Thank you," Faramir whispered, tears streaming down his face. Frodo turned to Sam. "Come with me, Sam. We'll cross together, you and I, just like we've done everything else." But Sam shook his head, though his eyes were wet. "No, Mr. Frodo. My place is in the Shire, with Rosie Cotton and the garden at Bag End. I'll miss you something terrible, but I can't leave Middle-earth. This is my home." Frodo embraced him, and they held each other for a long moment. Then Frodo turned to the bridge. "I'm ready," he said. He walked onto the bridge alone, past the 7 lights, and each one dimmed as he passed. When he reached the far side, he turned back once more to wave. Then he stepped forward, and he was gone, passing into a light that swallowed him whole. The lanterns went dark. The bridge returned to its old simple form of stone and mortar. The keeper bowed once, then faded like morning mist. "He is at peace now," Gandalf said softly. "The long road is ended." Faramir looked down at the ring on his finger. It felt light as air, but he knew its true weight, the weight of responsibility, of healing, of hope. He would wear it, and he would use its power to mend what had been broken, to bring light to the dark places of the world. And in the years that followed, that is exactly what he did. Faramir, the Ring-Bearer. Men called him last of the Ring-Bearers, first of the healers of the Fourth Age. The Ring of Celebrimbor worked through him to restore Gondor to its ancient glory, to mend the breaches between the peoples of Middle-earth, and to bring his father Denethor back from the edge of despair. The Silent Bridge stood empty and dark, but it was never forgotten. The people of Ithilien kept it in good repair, and they told their children stories of the ring-bearer who had crossed it into legend, and of the man who had stayed behind to heal the world. And sometimes, on Midsummer's Eve, when the moon was full and the night was clear, travelers passing by the bridge would swear they saw 7 lights burning upon its span, and heard voices singing in a language older than memory, the voices of those who had walked the hidden road, and who watched still over the land they had saved. Thus ends the tale of the lanterns and the Silent Bridge, and the choices made by those who bore the burden of the rings. Frodo found his peace in the Undying Lands, and Faramir found his purpose in Middle-earth. Both were heroes, and both are remembered in song. But the greatest truth of the tale is this, that heroism is not in the bearing of burdens alone, but in the wisdom to know when to set them down, when to pass them on, and when to carry them still. And that is a choice each of us must make, in our own time, on our own bridge between the light and the dark. Here ends the tale.